The topic that has been given to me is daily cross and worldliness. This is a very practical thing. And what I'm going to share is not something new to us, but once in a while it is good to listen to something very basic so that it will even touch us during especially this time of Lent. The key words here, the topic that's given to me is daily cross and worldliness. The key words here are daily cross and the word worldliness. The phrase daily cross appears in Luke 9:23, which reads, "Then he said to them all, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me." Briefly, this verse tells us that what we need to do in order to follow Jesus. The two things are to deny ourselves and to take up our cross daily. My focus is on the word daily cross. What does it mean to take up the cross daily? Why not take up the cross weekly or monthly, or maybe take up the cross on a Sunday? In the first place, why the cross? Why is the cross so important and what's so special about it? Let me talk about the cross, okay? We are all very familiar with the cross. The cross is a symbol of Christianity. It is very well recognized, and also it is one of the most recognized symbols in the world. Usually when we see someone wearing a cross around their neck, we know that they are Christians, or we assume they are Christians. The cross is also can be a fashion statement. In rock bands, you see the lead singer or even the musicians wearing big and flashy crosses. Okay? And even in movies, it's very common to see the bad guys wearing crosses. And also under fashion, also you see on the runway models wearing crosses as an accessory to their outfits. The cross is also a symbol of punishment and shame. In the days of Jesus, the cross was used to punish criminals. It was a symbol of shame. Anyone who is up in the cross, usually the family is very, very embarrassed because that person is a criminal. The upper class Romans did not know much about the punishment on the cross, because the cross was reserved more for slaves and members of the lower class. Okay? They are familiar with it. And it's mainly reserved for criminals and rebellious foreigners. The cross is also a symbol of pain and suffering. We know this very well, okay, that the cross is a symbol of pain and suffering. When we talk about daily cross, we usually say the cross represents challenges and difficulties faced by Christians or in our lives. So it is not something we welcome in our lives. The cross is also a symbol of death. To be sentenced to hang on a cross is not only humiliating, shameful, but it also brings about a slow, long, painful experience. The suffering can last for days. A person can be nailed to the cross and they will be hung there till the person dies. So the main purpose is to inflict as much pain as possible while prolonging death. The criminal should suffer and regret his crime. So the ultimate purpose of the cross is not just pain and suffering, it is death. So the cross is not just a symbol, it is also something that it's a very, very difficult thing that one has to go through if the person is found to have done any crime. So when Jesus told his disciples to take up the cross daily, he was actually telling them to put to death their own plans and desires and to turn their lives over to him and to do his will every day. This applies to us too. The next word that we want to consider is worldliness. Literally, the word worldliness means being concerned with material values or things or ordinary life rather than a spiritual existence. That means we are not seeking anything spiritual, but everything that is earthly and worldly. That's the literal meaning of worldliness. So it actually talks about the systems and customs of the world. As long as we are living in the world, we are exposed to all its evil and bad influences. Being worldly or worldliness is a very subjective thing. There is no clear line or distinction on what is acceptable and what is not. A certain act of worldliness may be acceptable to one group of people or one group of Christians, but not acceptable to another. I remember during my younger days when I used to attend a church, nobody used to wear jewelry or even makeup, okay, because it was considered worldly. Even young women who were getting married, they did not use any makeup. Their faces were very plain. But today, those same women who went without jewelry and makeup, I still know them, they are in their 60s or 70s now. Once upon a time, they were forbidden to use such things, but now I see them wearing all these things. What has changed? Why is it acceptable now and not then? I can give you more examples. Even our dressing. To some Christians, acceptable outfit is being dressed from the chin down to the ankle. Everything is covered. Showing your skin is considered worldly dressing. And also another thing that I can compare now and then during my younger days, the TV was considered worldly also. So many people then in my church did not have a TV in their home because it was considered worldly. But today most of us have smart TVs, and with that we can watch anything and everything under the sun. Nobody cares anymore. One more thing is alcoholic drinks or liquor. To many Christians, it's a big no. You know, you're not supposed to consume anything with alcohol in it. But in some Christian societies, it is acceptable because in those countries, drinking wine or beer is a very common thing. And some people say a little wine is good for your health too. But these are some of the obvious things that we see and we consider as worldly. But there are many more things which we don't see, especially our worldly behaviors and attitudes, and also our secret desires in our hearts, secret things our secret life, all these things which we do behind our backs. On the front, we act very good. These things are under the surface, so no one knows about this. Like I said earlier, different people see worldliness differently. Where do we draw the line? So what is worldly and what is not worldly? Who is the judge and who decides? We are called not to be worldly, but we are still in the world facing all the worldly matters. You can take the worldliness out of ourselves, but we can't take ourselves out of the world. We have no choice but to live in the world. We are surrounded by and exposed to things that may not be acceptable. We are also not called to be tied or yoked to the world. Our highest passion and priority should be for God and not the world. But at the same time, we cannot drop everything that is around us, the world, and go away living like monks in some monastery far away in some mountain. That is not possible. The problem actually starts when we love things of the world more than we love God. When things start taking place in place of God, then in place of God, the things of the world will become our idols. A simple example is being hooked to the TV or online games. This can take us away from many godly things. It starts with the lust of the eyes. Example, I see something, I like something, then I want it. And this applies to many things, not just games and TV. 1 John 2:16 says, "For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world." So let us put together the daily cross and worldliness now. Luke 14:27 says, "Anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." This is a very heavy and serious call. It is not just about acknowledging and believing that Jesus exists and that he can save us. This is a very serious commitment that is expected of us as children of God. We face many worldly issues and challenges. When we don't see the need to resist influence and temptation, that's when we start falling. We just go with the flow and we don't make any effort to avoid it. This is what it means to conform to the world. This means allowing the worldly matters to take control. But when we are rooted in the word, we can resist this. There are many ways to overcome the world. I won't discuss this in detail, but basically it is putting to death whatever that comes our way, things that hinder and affect our relationship with God. Putting to death, that's where the cross comes in. Like what I said earlier, the cross is the symbol of death. So what we need to do is put what comes in the way to death. And this is something we need to do daily, because daily we face challenges and issues of the world. Worldliness is real. It is very appealing. It can be attractive, beautiful. It makes us good, feel good. And sometimes these worldly things even bring more money in for us. So it can be very attractive. So we go after this instead of using our knowledge and of the Bible to prevent us from falling further. We are called not to love the world and the things it offers, meaning not to hold on to it. This does not mean that we cannot enjoy life, but we must remember that God has given us the wisdom to know our boundaries and our limits, where we stand, what can we do, how far can we go in certain things. But it sometimes takes us away from growing in Christ. If something takes us away from growing in Christ, we should let it go, because then it becomes worthless, useless, and lacks any value. So every day we are surrounded by worldly things, the good, the bad, pleasures, pressures, stress, and more. To decide whether the things of the world are acceptable or not, let us stop and check. If these things are over time, whether we need to stop and check whether these things are taking us away from God or towards God. Do they push us away from God, or do they push us towards God? Many things cause us to have less time with godly things and His ministries, not having enough time with God. The more time we spend with Him, the more time we spend learning about Him, will cause us to draw closer to Him. This will increase our understanding of God. The opposite happens when we spend more time on worldly things. It only draws us away from God. Our life should be a fruitful one. If it is not, let us examine if the worldly pleasures and pressures are choking our lives, preventing it from being fruitful. That is why we need to take up the daily cross, meaning putting to death whatever hinders us from knowing God more. Whatever hinders us from drawing closer to Him, that is what we should put away. So we as Christians, it means that we are followers of Christ. Is Christ the master of your life? Are we putting to death whatever is preventing us from drawing closer to Him? Have we put to death our own plans and committed ourselves to His will for our life? Don't be satisfied with anything less, for there is no greater joy in life than following Christ every day.